Okay, so first type, or yeah, so in this class we are going to look at types of lasers. Okay, and according to syllabus, they haven't mentioned some of them, but to explain some other lasers, I think we need to look at all the types. So either type is called as homojunction lasers. So homojunction lasers എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മുടെ normal PN junction. So normal PN junction, where you might have studied in your SSD that if you have a P and an N junction, it will form something called as a depletion region here. Okay, and this will be your active region. Till now, we have seen that there will be two mirrors and there will be active region in between, or the gain region in between, and you pump. There is a pumping mechanism. So in this case, the pumping mechanism is basically a forward bias diode, and the current is the one which is going to be pumped. So for every laser, there should be a pumping mechanism. There should be some kind of an active region or a gain mechanism, and there should be some kind of a feedback, or there should be something called as a resonant cavity. So these are the basic requirements for a laser action to occur that we have studied in the first class of lasers. So in this homojunction lasers, basically you will have a P and N junction. There's a current which is drawn. So when the current is supplied in the forward bias region, the charge carriers will move towards the active region. Okay. And in the active region, there will be more number of charge carriers. Basically, you are saying that there are more charge carriers in the conduction band. And this active region will now be having a population inversion. Okay, so there will be a population inversion in the active region because of the pumping. So as you supply more and more current, more and more population inversion will happen. Okay, now if you supply a light to the active region, it will cause a stimulated emission. Right? And now to create continuously stimulated emission, what you will do is you will make the edges reflective, non-reflective, or you will have something called as an anti-reflective coating. You will polish the edges. So this can be called as polished edges, so that whatever laser light is coming out, that will be reflected from this polished edge, or you can say this is as, and there will be something called as an anti-reflective coating, AR coating, at both the edges. And the reflectance of these two coatings will be approximately 100%. So one side will be highly reflectance, that means there will be like 100% itself, and the other side will have less reflectance so that some of the laser will come out. Okay. Now, if you draw this in a 3D structure, so this is only a 2D structure. If you draw this in a 3D structure, then you see that it is something like this. So in the middle, there will be active region. Let me draw it. So in the middle, there will be an active region like this. Okay. And this will extend to all the 3 sides or all the 4 sides around the cube. So this is our active region. And This will be some kind of a metallic contact so that you can supply electricity. There will be some kind of a metallic structure at the top and bottom. And then you connect your supply to this metallic structure. Where you pass current, and there will be, this will be a p-type material, this will be an n-type material, and then you will have this one, both the sides polished. So this side will be highly polished. So as this side, there is the other side of this face. This will be highly polished, so that whatever laser is coming, which is from the active iridium, will get reflected back to the whole bulk of the material, and the lasing action will keep on continuing. This is a typical semiconductor laser. Okay, so I explained homogeneous or homo junction lasers because my next topic is heterojunction lasers. Now, before coming to heterojunction laser, all the homojunction lasers are pretty simple, where you have just p-type and n-type, and there is an active region in the middle. The final product is not entirely same. Okay, there are extra 2 more layers in any type of lasers. So apart from this p-type and n-type, so let me draw that again. So the middle one is the active region. Okay, and there is some extra layers. So there is a layer coming here, and there is a layer here. Okay, so now if you look, this is the active region, or you usually call this as core. You might have studied in optical communication, the core. And this layer, which is just outside the active layer, is called as the cladding. Okay, this is called as a cladding or a guiding layer. And the third layer, which is outside the cladding, is called as a confinement layer. Okay, so from the name itself, everything is there. So any wave, which is, let me show the wave as something like this. This is the active region. Let's say there is some mode, a laser mode being propagated along this active region. Okay, so any wave which is propagating through active region, the cladding will be guiding the wave along that region. So it will not allow the wave to come out of the cladding. So there will be some tail of the wave in the cladding, that is fine, but it will not allow the wave have to come out of the cladding. The wave will be propagating along the active region. The active region will be very smooth. There will not be any defects in the active region. It will just propagate. The confinement layer is the one which will not allow the photons to go out of the material, of the bulk of the material. So it confines the photons. It's called as an optical confinement. And cladding is the one which is a carrier confinement. Okay, so it will not allow the carriers to go out. So this is a typical structure of a semiconductor laser. So there are multiple regions, and we will study each in different lasers what these different layers are made of. And there will be core, there will be a cladding, there will be confinement layer, and the outermost is called as a substrate. Substrate means that is a semiconductor over which all these layers are made, or it is called as the body of the semiconductor. Okay. Now coming to after heterojunction, naturally you will have something called as a after homojunction, naturally you will have something called as a heterojunction laser. And by the way, the homojunction laser is not mentioned in your syllabus, but to explain heterojunction, I think homojunction is pretty important. So if you look at the p-type semiconductor or whatever homojunction semiconductor we have, if you draw the normal block diagram, you see that there's a p, there is a N, and there is only one junction. This is the junction. So this is called as a homojunction. In heterojunction, you will have, or let's start with something called as a double heterojunction. Double heterojunction laser. As the name indicates, you will have two junctions in the semiconductor. Okay, there are two such junctions. So there is the first junction, which is this, and there's a second junction, which is this. There are two such junctions. And usually you will have a material like aluminum gallium arsenide, which is of p-type in one end, and n-type aluminum gallium arsenide in other end, and there's a different semiconductor as gallium arsenide in the middle. Okay, so this is a heterojunction semiconductor, and all that we have explained in this diagram or in this diagram is applicable to this also, where you will have this confinement layer, active region, cladding, etc., etc. Here the confinement layer is actually our middle junction. So the gallium arsenide will act as a confinement or the active region. Sorry, this is actually a active region. And the gallium arsenide is of narrow band gap. So if you draw the band diagram, you can see it will be something like this. Okay, so this part, which is of higher band gap, is aluminum gallium arsenide, and this part, which is of narrow band gap, is of gallium arsenide. Okay. So when you connect, so basically you need to have some kind of a pumping mechanism. So how will you do the pumping? You will do the pumping by connecting it to a source, positive and negative. So the current will be injected. The current will pass to through the junction towards the gallium arsenide. Okay. So if you look at the band diagram, what happens is the electrons from the conduction band will be pushed inside the well. So this is a quantum well where the electrons will be pushed and it will make itself in different energy states inside the quantum well. Similarly, the holes will also be pushed to the quantum well. Fine. Now, as more and more electrons come in, this quantum well will get filled. So, as the electron needs more energy to come out of this well, so this much energy it needs to come out of this well, this much potential, which it is not easy to get. So the electron will stay in that well, producing the population inversion. So as you pump in more and more current, the electrons gets into the quantum well. Once it is getting into the quantum well, then it will get stuck in the quantum well because it needs higher potential to come out of the quantum well. So more and more electrons will come inside, and it will create population inversion, okay, when compared to the lower energy states. And now when you provide with a with a light, it will create simulated emission and produce photons. Okay. So whatever photon you are giving in, it will not be absorbed by aluminum gallium arsenide because it has higher band gap. Okay. So whatever this photon that I am giving in, this will not absorb by this material because it has higher band gap. It will be absorbed only by the gallium arsenide because it has a smaller band gap, and it will produce the stimulated emission. Now, one thing to be noted here is, although this is a quantum well structure, and we have seen that in a quantum well structure there can have discrete energy levels. Okay. Now, the width of this quantum well, let's say as d, if the width of the quantum well is very large, then there will be a lot of energy states available inside the quantum well. That is one of the theory in quantum mechanics. So when the width of the quantum well is large, there will be a lot of energy states available here, which means that you can almost see it's like a continuous number of energy states. കൂടുതൽ എനർജി സ്റ്റേറ്റ് ഉണ്ടാകുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ കാണുമ്പോൾ ഭയങ്കര കണ്ടിന്യൂസ് ആയിട്ട് എനർജി സ്റ്റേറ്റ് ആയിട്ട് നമുക്ക് തോന്നും. ഓക്കെ, എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ വിഡ്ത്ത് എത്രത്തോളം കൂട്ടുന്നു, how much you increase the width, there will be a continuum of energy states inside the well. And if you have more energy states, any electron in any of the high energy state can move to the lower energy state emitting a phonon. Okay? So there is a possibility of a phonon transition. കാരണം ഇതിനകത്ത് ഇഷ്ടംപോലെ എനർജി സ്റ്റേറ്റ് ആണ്. ആ എനർജി സ്റ്റേറ്റിൽ നിന്ന് ഹയർ എനർജി സ്റ്റേറ്റിൽ നിന്ന് ലോവർ എനർജി സ്റ്റേറ്റിലേക്ക് ഇറ്റ് ക്യാൻ കം ഓൾവേസ്, ആൻഡ് ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് നോട്ട് അക്രോസ് ബാൻഡ് ഗ്യാപ്പ്. കണ്ടക്ഷൻ ബാൻഡിൽ നിന്ന് തന്നെ it can move in between energy state. So when it moves in between the energy state, it will emit a phonon because it is not a big energy change. It might be a small momentum change. Okay? So keep that in mind because we will see some disadvantages of this one, and we'll see why other data are better. Okay. Okay. Now the main, so this is basically the structure, and this is how the heterojunction laser works. Now the main disadvantage of this one is the light emitted is not directional. Or you can say it is not purely directional. It is spread. So you can say it is spread. The main property of laser is the laser light is directional. It will be propagating. So whichever photons are emitted, it will be propagating in the same direction. It will not. So if one photon emitted propagates in 0 degree, next photon emitted should also propagate in 0 degree. If it propagates in like 45 degree, 90 degree, etc., etc., so it is getting a spread. So the light emitted from this object should always be in this direction. If you say that light emitted is something like this, this means it is spread. This means it is directional. Okay. So from a double heterojunction, the light emitted is spread. Okay, and this spreading is a big disadvantage. Okay, and I think I forgot to mention one more thing. So in the double heterojunction, the active region will have high, this region will have high refractive index. Okay. Actually, refractiveness is related to your band gap. So higher the band gap, lower refractiveness, and vice versa. And this region, which is the cladding region, will have low refractive index. So you also know that whenever there is a change in refractive index, there will be a reflection in light. So that we'll see in the next subsequent different types of lasers when we find. Okay. So the disadvantage that we have told is light emitted is not direction. So how can we make sure that light emitted is direction? So for that, we have something called as a guided laser. So this is actually a part of heterojunction lasers where instead of providing current through to the whole material, you will provide current only through to the active region. Okay. So it is something like this. You have a material like this. Okay, and the material is completed like this. It's like a top view. So you will have so there's a small gap here. Okay, and you can complete the material like this. There are different layers in this one, active region, cladding, etc., etc. So the current will be provided only to this part. The injection of current only is only provided to that part. So wherever it is there, so that part only will emit the laser. This is called as a guided laser. This is just for your information. You don't want to go in deep on this. So disadvantage of heterojunction lasers is the light emitted is not direction. And you can solve that by using a guided laser where the current injected to the laser is not to the complete material, but it will be confined to only a small part of the material. Okay, this is called as a guided laser. Okay, and other disadvantage is, so this is basically based on some kind of a PN junction, right? So for PN junction type of lasers, you need high threshold current. Threshold current is this current I that we inject. So this is called as a threshold current. So to have a lasing action in this type of lasers, you need to give a high amount of current. Then only this population inversion will happen, and then only the lasing action will happen. That is another disadvantage. Okay. So to mitigate these disadvantages, we have something called as a quantum well semiconductor laser. Okay. So remember, in this heterojunction lasers, the distance d of this quantum well is pretty high, so that this phonon emission will happen, so that there will be continuous number of energy states in the conduction band and valence band, etc., etc. When you have a quantum well semiconductor laser, it is same as that of heterojunction lasers, where you have two junctions, but the width of that well or width of that junction is very small. Okay, so you will have the speed type indium gallium arsenide, n type indium gallium arsenide. There is gallium arsenide here. Okay, but the width, this distance d of the quantum well semiconductor laser is very small. Okay. So if you look at the band diagram, it will be something like this. So when the quantum well size or the width is small, now you will not have a continuous or a large number of energy states. Instead, you will be having separated, discretely spaced energy states in both conduction band and valence band. Okay, so if in a quantum well laser, there will be totally separated, discrete energy states inside the well. And the lasing action is same that you give a current, the electron will flow and it will go inside the quantum well, it will create population inversion. The method is same, except that the energy states will not be large number, it will be a small number of energy states, but they will be spaced with enough distance. Now, what's the advantage of that? First thing, there will not be phonon emission because any electron in this energy state need to come to the lower energy state. There's a considerable amount of energy to be released, and that energy cannot be released using a phonon. Instead, what it does is there will be a radiative transition between the conduction band and valence band. So when you supply the photon for stimulated emission, the whatever transition happening will be through the band gap. It will be along the conduction band to the valence band, emitting highly directional photons. Okay, so this is called as a quantum well semiconductor laser. So this is a single well where the electrons are emitted from high energy state to, or electrons jump from high energy state to low energy state. And the important property of this quantum well structure is that it needs only less threshold current. That's a very important property of this quantum well semiconductor laser. Okay, and by adjusting the width of the well, you will be able to generate laser of different wavelengths. So since the quantum well width is very less, if you slightly adjust the width by like 1 angstrom or 1 micrometer, it will cause a very drastic change in the wavelength. Okay, and this is highly efficient. Okay, and basically the radiative recombination efficiency is high. Remember, whenever there is a phonon involved, then the radiative recombination efficiency decreases. So in double heterojunction lasers, where the quantum well width is large, the radiative recombination efficiency is less. But in quantum well lasers, where phonon emission possibility is less or low, the radiative recombination efficiency is high. Okay, and Mostly it is because of that you have discrete energy levels. Okay, so this is only single well. You can have multiple wells also, something like this. Something like this. Okay, you can have multiple quantum well lasers or MQW lasers. Okay, so as you increase the number of wells, the threshold current will reduce again and again. So advantage is the threshold current, which is the current needs to be supplied for this population inversion. The threshold current decreases. But again, the main problem is like for the fabrication of such multiple quantum well lasers is a bit tough. But the advantage is that you need to provide only less power. Less threshold current means less power. Okay. So in all these lasers, basically you will have the same structure where this is a bulk material. There will be an active region. There will be a cladding. There will be a confinement layer, and there is a substrate. Okay. So if you project this in multiple quantum well lasers, you can see that this is multiple active layers. This is just for your information only. Don't want to worry too much about multiple quantum well lasers. So when you actually project the active layer of multiple quantum well laser, you can see that there are multiple active regions because of each of the quantum well. Okay. Fine. So these are many some of the semiconductor lasers. Now, and these lasers are mostly based on the different types of junctions, heterojunction, uh, homojunction, heterojunction, a double heterojunction, and quantum well. So everything is based on the junctions. Now there is a special type of two special type of lasers. The first one is called as, so I put as number 4. This is called as distributed feedback lasers. Okay. So we'll see what that distributed feedback laser is. First, let me draw the laser structure. So in a distributed feedback laser, you have the bulk material. Okay. And then you have the active region. And then you have the cladding in a special form. Okay. So this is the cladding. And then you have the confinement layer. And then the substrate. Okay. It's not up to scale. So the middle layer is your active region. And then on both the sides, you will have the anti-reflection coating. There is an anti-reflection coating on both the sides. And at the top, you will have a metallic contact so that you can supply current. Okay. So this, the top part is the metallic contact. This is AR coating, so that this will give whatever laser light is emitted will be reflected back. And this is called as corrugated grating. We'll explain what that is in a minute. Okay, and this is your active region. So the corrugated gating is the cladding or guided layer. The active region is your core. Okay, and then you have the confinement layer, or so this is the confinement layer. At last, you have the substrate. Okay, fine. Now, so what should be the type of different materials in each of them? So the substrate will be gallium arsenide. The confinement layer will be N-type gallium aluminum arsenide. The cladding layer, the bottom layer, will be N-type gallium aluminum arsenide. Active region is P-type gallium arsenide. The corrugated grating cladding will be gallium aluminum arsenide, P-type. This will be again P-type gallium aluminum arsenide. And then you have P-type gallium arsenide. You don't need to by heart all these names. I just mentioned, that's all. Okay. Now, so this is the complete structure. So a grating is something which directs the wave. Is something which directs the light wave, basically. So sometimes the grating will give the wave the total internal reflection, in which it will directing the wave to totally reflect. Or sometimes the grating will allow to give reflection to only one particular polarized light, etc., etc. So grating is something which always directs the wave. So it can be reflective, transmittive, etc. A corrugated grating means you see that the grating inside this is not smooth. It is having peak and troughs. This is called as a corrugated grating. Okay. Now, any wave which is traveling through this active region. So let me draw that in a bigger picture. So this is your active region. Okay. And then you have the cladding on both the sides. Assume that there is a wave. There's a particular mode of a wave. So the wave will have some tail here and the peak coming in the active region. So this wave is propagating in the forward direction. Now, a particular property of a wave is the wave doesn't want to get a discontinuity. Okay? In the case of this corrugated grating, the trough will have a refractive index high and the peak will have a lower refractive index. That means this part, if you look at this part, this trough will have a higher refractive index because of the p-type gallium aluminum arsenide with a different composition, and this part will have a lower refractive index. Okay, so when the wave moves along this active region with its tail on the cladding, it sees different refractive indexes when it moves. Okay, so if this wave moves here, so its tail is like something coming like this. Like this. If you assume something like this, it's this tail, when it moves along this corrugated grating, it sees different refractive indices as it moves. Okay, and whenever the wave sees different refractive indexes, there will be reflection at the surface. Okay, so to make it more clear, assume that if the corrugated grating is something like this. Okay, is some transition like this. Now, when the wave moves through this with its tail, it sees a refractive index n high here, n low here, n high here, n low here, n high here, and goes on. So whenever there's a change in refractive index, there will be a reflection. Okay, so a change in refractive index n implies there will be reflection of the light. So there will be reflection of the wave at each of these troughs and peaks. So there will be reflection like this of the wave. Now all the reflected waves might not be able to sustain in this semiconductor. The reflected waves whose wavelength or the de Broglie wavelength lambda is equal to 2n by lambda, where the capital lambda is the distance between one same phase of the grating. So from one end to other end, or you can say this is capital lambda. A grating ഒരു വേവ് ആയിട്ട് കൺസിഡർ ചെയ്യുകയാണെങ്കിൽ ആ ഗ്രേറ്റിങ്ങിനകത്തുള്ള സിംഗിൾ വേവ് ലെങ്ത് എന്ന് പറയുന്നതാണ് ക്യാപിറ്റൽ ലാംഡ. It is this. N is the refractive index. Okay, and lambda b is called as de Broglie wavelength, or the wavelength which survives inside that semiconductor. So actually lambda b is called P by mv, which is a de Broglie wavelength, but we can say that this is the wavelength which survives inside that semiconductor. Why it survives? Because only for this wavelength there will be a constructive interference at the after reflection. So only those waves who can constructively interfere at the starting point. So all these waves will be coming back, and only those waves we can constructively interfere can sustain in that way. Okay, once it comes back, there is a coating at there is a small coating here, reflected coating, which will make it go back again. Okay, so only those waves which can have constructive interference can sustain in this semiconductor, and those wavelengths are given by de Broglie wavelength. Lambda b is equal to 2n into lambda, where actually n is the refractive index, or you can say the effective refractive index. Okay. So there are two different refractive indexes here. One is for NH and NL. So effective refractive index can be a value. So it can For example, NH is 3.6 and NL is 3.4. The effective refractive index is 3.5, something like an average. So only those waves with this lambda can sustain in this one. Okay. So you see that the reflection is actually the feedback, and the feedback is distributed along the correlation grating. So that's why it is called as a distributed feedback laser. Okay, so the feedback is given by the reflection, and the reflected wave whose wavelength satisfies this condition will survive, where the condition has n effective as the effective refractive index, capital lambda as the lambda distance between any two in-phase points in the corrugated grating. So only those waves will have constructive interference that will survive, and all other waves will have destructive interference and it will move out of the cavity. So this is basically something called as a distributed feedback laser. Distributed feedback, why? Because the feedback is given by the reflections and it is distributed along the corrugated grating all along the semiconductor. Okay, now there is a problem with this. The problem is like this. If you plot the frequency spectrum, okay, it has along, so this is your frequency for the corresponding de Broglie wavelength. Okay, so ideally you should be getting only this one, but you will get extra peaks. Okay, and this is called as the side modes. So this should be the mean mode. Remember, all these are single frequency, single mode lasers where you will get only one frequency. You are not expecting to get more than one frequency. Okay, and the frequency, the single mode frequency is given by the main mode frequency plus or minus C by 2n effective L into Q plus 1 by 2, where L is the length of semiconductor or length of the active region. And Q can take values 0, 1, 2 according to the lobe which you are calculating. So this is actually the frequency or the side lobe frequency. Okay. This is side lobe. Now side lobes will cause problems. And you can always suppress side lobes, but the main issue is the frequency will change according to the injection current. So as you change the injection current, you are providing current like this at both ends. Oh, sorry, you are providing current from the top because the metallic contact is on the top. So you will be providing current here, and the current is provided for the whole bulk of the material. So according to the current you provide, the frequency will change. That is a problem, because if you change the current by a small amount, the laser will change its frequency, because you always need a frequency for a fixed frequency, but by changing current, it will change the frequency. That's a big problem in the DFB laser. To mitigate this problem, we have something called as, so this was for the last laser, distributed Bragg reflector laser. Okay, it is exactly same as that of the reflector laser, except, so if you look at this, or let me go to this complete picture. It is exactly same as that of this reflector laser, except the corrugation grating will not be like this. It will be something like this. Okay, and the metallic contact will also have a small change. The metallic contact will be there only where the corrugation grating is having a constant value. Okay, all else is same. Right. So the principle is exactly same, where you will have the reflection in the grating. It will be reflected here. So the reflection takes place only in this area and also in this area. And the current produced will only move in along this line. Okay. In this case, where DFB laser, the current produced will move all along this bulk material. But in the distributed Bragg reflector laser, the current produced will move only where the corrugation grating is not there. Okay. Because of which the frequency will not change according to, so the frequency will not change according to the injection current. Okay, or you can say the frequency remains stable. Right, so this is called as distributed Bragg reflector laser, because the pumping region of the Bragg reflector laser is only along a small metallic contact, while for a distributed feedback laser, the pumping is all along the bulk material, because of which you need, like, you when you inject the current, depending on the current, the frequency will change. Right, and the distributed, because you have the distributed feedback all along the corrugated grating. Okay, so these are the different types of lasers. We have one more laser which is called as tunneling laser. I think that we will do in the next class. So we'll stop here. So you can mark your attendance in the chat box, and we will see you on Friday.